The Democratic Party is indeed in disarray, and while many people are giving their opinions about it, very few people are actually explaining it. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video, because the majority of Americans, regardless of where they sit on the political spectrum, have no idea what is really going on and why any of this is happening. In this video, I will do my very best to be objective, share facts as they have been shared with me, and be as fair as possible to all involved, although this story, to me, is unbelievable. And what appears to be happening is very, very hard to believe if you believe in politics. Some people would have you believe that the Dropout Joe and Pass the Torch movement started after the debate. But I argue that it started during the primaries. No, the Democratic Party held 57 caucuses and primaries where President Joseph Robinette Biden received 14 million votes and amassed over 3,000 delegates. And while there was no serious contender to unseat him, there were indeed those who primaried him. Marianne Williamson primaried him, as did Minnesota Representative Dean Phillips. Dean Phillips, with a net worth of $77 million, is the former owner of Talenti Gelato, co-owner of Penny's Coffee, and CEO of Phillips Distilling Company. That is the Dean Phillips I'm talking about. President Biden overwhelmingly won the Democratic primaries with 87% of all votes. Phillips received 3%. Yet he was endorsed early by some very heavy financial hitters, including Bill Ackman, who led the ouster of the first black female president of Harvard University, and Jason Calacanis, or whatever his name is. I think Calacanis is the correct way to say it. A known angel investor, expert strategist in web and internet intellectual properties, and podcaster. There was a lot of big money behind Phillips, and now it seems as though that big money is making a move to ensure that Biden drops out of the race and that Vice President Harris is not allowed to replace him. That's what it seems. That's what I'm seeing all over social media. There was an entire social media movement empowered in large parts by Democratic strategist and fundraiser Condi Nantini, who created the hashtag #DropoutDean. She called for Dean to drop out. It was not only highly effective, but likely highly embarrassing to a man as entitled and privileged as Phillips. It truly showed him in America his lack of political accomplishments, political acumen, and political stamina for true national level leadership. When Dean dropped out, we thought we were done with him, but it looks as though there are close ties to Dean Phillips and the movement to force President Biden out of office. Things seemed solid for the Biden-Harris campaign until a less than stellar presidential debate performance happened in late June. The opening of the debate was a disaster for President Biden, but he did improve as the night moved forward. He gave stunningly strong responses to questions involving international affairs and provided concrete insight into the work he had done on behalf of the American people. Nonetheless, mainstream media panned him for his performance and largely ignored the performance and the lies of his opponent, Donald Trump. The New York Times released an editorial saying Joe Biden should drop out of the race for the good of America. An unprecedented move this late in an election year. It is one thing for the New York Times to not endorse a candidate for president, to not endorse President Biden, but to call on the incumbent president of the United States of America to drop out was stunning to me. It was unbelievable. And I immediately began to search for logic and reasoning behind this and found that many of the majority owners of the New York Times are Republican, and allegedly they are Trump donors. And after the Times article, a slow trickle of Democratic leaders, elected officials in closely contested congressional districts began to call for President Biden to just drop out. It started with 77-year-old Lloyd Doggett of Texas. Currently, there are 28 of the 212 Democrats in the House of Representatives and 3 of the 51 Democratic senators in the Senate who are calling for Biden to step down, although a few more are likely to emerge as the month concludes. What these 30-plus lawmakers have in common are closely contested races and the need for any advantage possible over their Republican challengers. Clearly, the advantage should be the work you have done on behalf of the people you serve, but no, No. It seems as though for these people, they think it's donor money. In addition to these elected leaders coming forward, Hollywood star George Clooney, as well as political has-beens like former Congressman Tim Ryan and former Housing Secretary Julian Castro and self-help author Marianne Williamson also came out and called for President Biden to step down. None of those made any impact on me. And I was not questioning any of this until leaks into the Republican-owned rag Politico came out and said that people like Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and President Obama were also not supporting President Biden. And then they also claimed that it was Nancy Pelosi. This made me question what they knew that maybe we didn't. And it seems as though it's not what they knew, but instead who. And the who they knew were people and people with money. The trash can New York Times did publish this pretty good article that detailed the golden age of political scheming that we're living in. An excerpt from the article states that mega donors like Abigail Disney and Tom Stricker are calling every major politician they know, encouraging them to call for Mr. Biden's removal. They're dangling money to members of Congress who say the right things and withholding money from those who do not. And even the most reclusive donors are talking to reporters, sometimes on the record, about the turmoil within the party's establishment. These are chaotic times. So many ideas are bouncing around the donor class that some card-carrying members say privately that they are having trouble keeping track of all the plots. Some of the wealthiest people in the world have been locked in a perpetual, almost academic examination of how much leverage they truly have to change Mr. Biden's mind. And I know that's wild, but the angling hasn't just been for mega donors. Entire political action committees like Next Generation PAC and Pass the Torch PAC are working in warp speed to push President Biden out. And note that both of these PACs allegedly tie back to Dean Phillips. According to a post on the Daily Chaos, the entire Pass the Torch movement was set up by Dean Phillips and Never Trump Republican Steve Schmidt, who denies this. Now, Steve Schmidt said no, he's not a part of it, but they said he was. And the post also indicates that this movement intends to pass the torch directly over Vice President Kamala Harris. So for those of you out there thinking that VP Harris will be the presumptive nominee if President Biden steps down, as she should be if he ever chose to step down, that's not what these privileged men intend. And in addition to these donors, sore losers, and never Trumpers, we have a faction of popular white male influencer podcast people pushing for Biden to also drop out that are connected back to Stricker. Among them, John Favreau, Positive American, and his Cricket Media team. Again, all of them going back to Stricker. The mega donors, the podcast brothers, the never Trumpers, they all share a commonality, and it's what they look like, and the overwhelming majority of them being men. And it's shocking that in 2024, this group of privileged men would feel as though they have the right to single-handedly determine who should be the Democratic nominee for President of the United States of America. That because of their wealth and influence, they have the right to make the successful incumbent President of the United States, who overwhelmingly won their primary, step down, and then they should hand select who gets to take his place. As though 14 million people don't count. As though those same people who you're saying now don't count will come out again and vote for your or their handpicked nominee. It's disgusting and telling of how money has too great of an impact on American politics. And absent from all of this chaos are black voters who are standing overwhelmingly with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. And there are those who say Vice President Harris is more than ready to assume party leadership if President Biden were to step down. And I agree with them if he steps down. The entire purpose of Vice President is to take over if the president is unable to do his or her job. That's why she was picked, because she was ready. If he stepped down, From the beginning of this disaster, this debacle, this infighting, President Biden has vowed to remain in the race. And he has never wavered in that decision, to his decision to not drop out. And I believe that he will hold steady to that decision. The question is, what will you do in this moment? You, the American people, the network that I've built on social media, friends and family that I have that are engaging in this video. I plan to stay the course and go hard for President Biden and Vice President Harris as a ticket, as I have done the entirety of their 4 years in office and the entirety of the campaign in 2020. I also plan, I already have. I have already unfollowed every single person who has brought anything to my attention around the concept of President Biden dropping out. That means I've unsubscribed to the podcast from Crooked Media. There's no more Pod Save America or Love It or Leave It or any of that nonsense in my Apple podcast playlist. They're done. I will never listen again. I have unfollowed these people on social media, and I will never again engage in their content. This is it for them and me. In addition to that, I have also made the decision to turn off MSNBC because several MSNBC commentators and people with talent at MSNBC are connected back to Wicker. And I have noticed a sharp turn in their approach to covering this election. Major things have happened in the world that have gone basically unmentioned by MSNBC because all their focus has been on why President Biden should drop out and whether or not he was going to. Clearly putting pressure on him at this pivotal moment to do exactly that. Luckily, he has not been persuaded by their antics. So no, I've #turn off MSNBC. And you may say, well, what about CNN? I haven't watched CNN, my friends, since March of 2023, when Kaylin Collins sat down and gave a platform to Donald John Trump, his first national cable news interview beyond Fox News after the January the 6th insurrection. I chose then to not watch CNN ever again. Shortly thereafter, they fired Don Lemon, cementing my decision to never turn them on. I do not watch CNN. I was watching MSNBC. Note that in the month of June, CNN had their lowest ratings in 33 years. I'm not the only one who no longer watches that network. And note that in June, the week leading up to right after the debate, after their negative torrent of criticism of President Biden, MSNBC also suffered some of its lowest ratings of the year. I tell you this, prediction, newsflash, it's only going to get worse for MSNBC. Because they, like CNN, have chosen to abandon their core audience, to betray their viewers, and go down a rabbit hole of poor journalism, perhaps because they're being forced to do so by those who hold the purse. But it's still something that I cannot and will not be able to support. I think that you should do the same. Continue to remain steadfast in searching for the truth and looking deeper into the things that you're being shown by the media and by people like me. Look deeper, fact check everything that I've said, because that is what will make the difference. With that being said, I want you to be well, be blessed, and whatever you do, keep pushing. I'll see you soon.